I came from a place that had never produced an author, a little town in the Texas Panhandle. Nobody in my family had ever even thought about that. So I was really flying blind from the beginning, and I started trying to write novels that imitated what was being published in Atlantic Monthly and what was appearing on the New York Times bestseller list. I was imitating a kind of story that I really didn't enjoy reading, and I suppose you'd describe it as existential. The outcomes always seemed to be bleak. The movies of those days were bleak. The literature was bleak. If you start with that worldview, you're not going to write much humor. I really didn't have any sense of direction on what I should be writing. I had gone through 4 years at the University of Texas and 2 years at Harvard Divinity School. I tried to write for that market, and fortunately everything I wrote was so bad nobody would publish it. One day, walking across the Harvard campus, it suddenly struck me that I could never be part of that place. I would never be one of those people. I was a fifth generation Texan, and I couldn't wash it off even though I wanted to. I come here every morning, usually around 5 or 5:30, and walk down with my dogs and use a flashlight. And this is where I do my writing. Twice a year, I allow myself the pleasure of writing a Hank the Cowdog book. It only takes me about a month to write a Hank book, and I wish that I could do it all year round, just the way a kid wishes he could eat ice cream all the time, but you can't pump your aquifer to the point where it goes dry. I started off pasting my rejection slips on the wall because I was confident that by the time I covered one wall, I would get something accepted, and then I could look at that and say, "Oh, you fools, you see, I was right all along." Well, by the time I covered the entire office, all 3 or 4 walls with rejection slips, it wasn't funny anymore. So I tore them down and burned them. Finally, in despair, I decided that I needed to find an audience of some kind, and I started writing for livestock publications that I was reading when I was working on ranches. They recognized that I knew what I was talking about and that my stories were funny, and so they started publishing my short things, and I started making some money, and that's really an important incentive for any writer. Every writer needs an audience, and one of the ways of gaining appreciation is that somebody will pay you for what you do.
probably happened without my even knowing it. I just felt like I was a part of what he was doing from the very start. First it was proofreading the articles that he would send in, or any of the stories he did. I did the proofreading because I worked cheap and there wasn't anyone else around to do it. I don't know, it's just natural for a woman to, I think it is, to want to help in any way she can.
In the 1980s, I was working on a ranch south of Perryton, Texas. I had a wife and 2 children that I was trying to support. I was not making much money as a cowboy, about $500 a month, and I was writing on the side. I had done a lot of writing for the Cattleman magazine. It's a trade journal for ranchers and cowboys. I talked them into buying a year's supply, which would be 12 stories. They agreed to pay me $150 a piece for them, which was big money to me. And I dashed off these stories in 2 or 3 weeks. There were 14 of them. I was giving no thought to structure, style. All I knew was they were paying me $150 a piece for them. I ran out of ideas and thought of 2 dogs that I had known on ranches. Hank was an Australian Shepherd on a ranch in Oklahoma. Drover was a little dog that lived on the ranch, the LZ Ranch, the one I was working on in the 80s. I put them together with a cat named Pete and wrote a story that I call Confessions of a Cowdog. It was narrated by Hank, and it began, "It's me again, Hank the Cowdog."
It's me again, Hank the Cowdog. I just got some terrible news. There's been a murder on the ranch. I know I shouldn't blame myself. I mean, a dog is only a dog. He can't be everywhere at once. When I took this job as head of ranch security, I knew that I was only flesh and blood. 4 legs, a tail, a couple of ears. Pretty nice kind of nose that the women really go for. 2 bushels of hair and another half bushel of Mexican sandburrs. You add that all up and you don't get Superman. Just me, good old easygoing Hank, who works hard, tries to do his job, and gets very little cooperation from anyone else around here.
I dashed that off in about 3 hours, turned off the light and went to work at the ranch. And the next morning, I decided, well, that was fun. I will see if I can do another one. So I wrote a second one. I never had any idea that there was anything special about those 2 Hank stories. If I had known what was to come, we probably would have called it Hank the Cowdog and Other Cowboy Stories. But I had no idea that Hank was going to become a star. When I went out and read my stories aloud in Perryton and little towns in this area, people just fell out of their chairs laughing, and they said, "You need to do more with the dog." And up to that time, I'd never thought about that. I decided I would try to make Hank into a short novel, and it was an easy book to sell. I was reading them aloud. That's how I advertised. If people enjoyed the program, they bought the book, and they did. So we had to do a second printing pretty quickly. That's when I got the idea of doing a second book, and I wrote that one in 2 weeks. And I tell you what, when you write a book in 2 weeks, you're really flying. We brought out the second book. It was easy to sell too. So I began thinking of it as a series. The odd thing about the Hank stories is that the original short story was written for an audience of adult males involved in agriculture. They were never written for children. I started getting calls from elementary school librarians and teachers saying that their kids were bringing Hank books to school, and would I consider doing a program for their kids. And I said, yeah, I can do the program, but your kids are not going to understand the humor. It's very subtle. This story is being narrated by a dog who's not very smart, and he also lies all the time. He's not a malicious liar, he just doesn't like to admit that he makes mistakes. And the teachers informed me that their kids were reading them on the playground at recess, and then they thought they understood the humor because they were laughing. So I did the sensible thing and stopped arguing. You don't always know what you're supposed to be doing when you start a literary enterprise. You have to have the discipline to keep working at your craft until it finds the proper audience. That sometimes is very, very hard to do. In my case, I wrote for 15 years before I stumbled upon the Hank character, or he fell out of the sky and hit me over the head like a wounded duck. When it's time to write a Hank book, I always know the first sentence. It's me again, Hank the Cowdog. Every book begins with the same sentence and it ends with the same sentence, which is case closed. I very seldom know where a Hank book is going. If I did, I lose interest in the story. I've tried outlining stories, and it doesn't work for me. The Hank stories are very spontaneous, and I just start a lot of times with Hank and Drover asleep on their gunny sacks beneath the gas tanks. Something wakes them up. They're usually not talking about the same thing. Hank is talking about one thing, Drover's talking about another. The scenes are kind of chaotic and incoherent, but they're very funny. A lot of times I'll describe the way this ranch looks at the time I'm writing. The weather is kind of an unseen character in the stories, but the stories are very much centered on this particular region where I live and where I've worked as a cowboy for many years. I might bring in a funny thing that I've seen my dogs do. A lot of times a Hank book begins with something silly my dogs had done. I like for the stories to be funny. If a Hank story is not making me laugh, then something's wrong with it. If it's not funny, then it's not a good Hank story.
We would get together and talk about how poor we were and how rich we wanted to be and famous. It first started with a short story that he had put in one of his other books about a cow dog that was pretty worthless. And I'd never owned a cow dog, so when he asked me for some sketches, this is what I came up with. I had no idea what a cow dog looked like. Reading John's manuscripts, it didn't take me very long to figure out that the cow dogs were about as smart as I was, so it was easy to go from there. Usually John draws the picture with his words. That one of the problems now is trying to make sure that I don't repeat something that I've done before. The stories were all different, but I get, sometimes I have to throw away a sketch because I've done something so similar before that. So I try to spread them out, make every one a little bit different. I've had kids tell me that in one sketch Hank would have 3 toes and in the other one he would have 4. But that's, they usually forgive me for that. I don't know whether it makes me feel humble or responsible for a lot of mixed up kids or what. I really don't. It's just, when I see the reaction of the kids, it's something I'm proud of. In
2006, World Magazine came out with their annual issue on children's books, and they made it their cover story. Gerald Holmes did this drawing especially for the cover shot, and it's one that I'm very proud of. So I'm not often thought of as a Christian author because I'm not just writing about transparent Christian themes. my books are deeply Christian in a very subtle way. I think that the Christian worldview gives us a framework that allows us to produce better art than the framework that secular artists are operating out of. Our Christian storytelling operates on two levels. The first is the level of the story that's being told. The second is the story that we celebrate in our churches, beginning with Christ's birth and ending with the crucifixion and the resurrection. That is a fundamental part of Christian art. There is a Christian effect from a story well told, and you can do that skillfully without ever using faith words. I come to town on Wednesdays usually and do whatever autographing I have to do here at the warehouse. I'm signing a full set of Hank books. This is world headquarters of Maverick Books in Perryton, Texas. We are the publisher of all of the books and the audio books and the source of t-shirts and a little bit of merchandise. And this is where it started, not in this building, it started in my garage in Perryton in 1982, and it has grown quite a bit since then. Well, starting Maverick Books was a pretty crazy thing to do. I had been so thoroughly beaten by the existing publishing system, I had to either do something different or quit, and I was not raised to quit. So Chris and I talked it over, and we decided that we didn't need the approval of editors or book reviewers or university professors. What we needed was people who were starving for something decent to read. We borrowed $2,000 from a foolish banker and got a pallet of books. I hauled them to our garage, and that was world headquarters of Maverick Books. I started going out and doing programs, and every time I would read out of a Hank book, I would have books at the back to sell, and if people liked the program, they were likely to buy the book. It was a slow way to build an audience, but I think it was an honest way and a good way. Building a business, selling each book one at a time, signing the book, meeting the mothers and the teachers and the grandmothers. It was a way to build a loyal audience. I wanted to do these books as audios because they were meant to be read aloud. In the first book, there were 14 voices. I wasn't sure that I could come up with that, but I couldn't afford to hire anybody. So I just went to the sound studio and did it. It's me again, Hank the Cowdog. I just got some terrible news. There's been a murder on the ranch. Oh my gosh, Hank, I heard a loud noise out there and I can't sleep and this old leg is starting to give me fits. Oh, my leg.
Hello, Hanky. My. Hanky the Wonder Dog has walked into my life.
Hank, get out of my yard, you stinking dog, and leave my cat alone.
Hi, Hanky. You wanna go for a hike and play pirates?
But Pa, I want to be a singer when I grow up.
Son, no self-respecting buzzard has ever wanted to be a singer. You ain't a hummingbird, son, you're a buzzard.
Oh, Hank, you're so handsome, but you stink.
Hank, Get away from the stove, your hair's on fire. I wouldn't have bet a nickel that I could have done any more than those original 14 voices, but I don't know how many voices we have in the series now. The last time I counted, I think it was 65 or 70. You don't attempt something like that until you have to. It's forced all of us to use talents we didn't know we had, and that's really a nice thing to find in your professional work. With us, it's been a pretty wild ride. We haven't always been financially secure, but we've always had a pretty good time doing it. When I was 5 years old, my mother told me that God had given me a talent and that I should always guard it and use it wisely. And maybe every mother in the United States tells her child that, but I took my mother seriously and I actually believed her. And that was something that has come back to me over the years, and it sustained me through many years when I was getting rejection slips from everybody who was supposed to know something about writing. Being in a church gives me a lot of creative inspiration and ideas. I think it's a good environment for me as an artist to be in. And one of the things that I like about this particular church is that it has beautiful architecture. In this sanctuary, you get the feeling of largeness, grandeur, beauty. It points our attention towards something higher than ourselves, and that in itself is a profound sermon. You don't have to say one word. When I look at your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars that you have established, what is man that thou art mindful of him? That is one of the most profound questions. It somehow nourishes the creative impulse in me, and oddly enough, I get a lot of my ideas for the Hank stories in church when I should probably be listening to the sermon, but my mind wanders sometimes. Some of the songs in the Hank audiobooks have a distinctly church sound to them, even though I kind of drop them into the Hank stories without making that announcement. It's just, to me, it's part of the same fabric.
Like I said, it was made of sheepskin, and the smell just gave me the fits. All at once, I felt a compulsion to chew it up in tiny little bits. I get tired of doing things that are ridiculous and strange. When we steal their shoes, it makes them mad. Someday I need to think about a change. I get so tired of doing things that are ridiculous. It really bugs me because I know it is strange. Eating papers and shoes is totally weird. Someday I need to think about a change. Someday I need to think about a change. Someday I need to think about chewing things because I love it.
One of the things that you can do in an audio book that you can't do in a regular book is bring in music. And it was natural for me to go from doing character voices to bringing in music. And in the beginning, the songs were pretty crude. I'd never written a song before. We have 2 songs in every audio book, and we have about 130 songs probably in the Hank corpus. I played the banjo. Chris bought a mandolin and a chord book, and she started playing the mandolin. Somehow it falls together, and we have a good time. We don't take ourselves seriously. Anyone who's a serious musician can find flaws in the songs we do in the studio, and I don't care. For what I do, it's good enough. People forgive me for not being a great musician because I'm not a liar, and I'm honest with them.
Chickens. All I see are chickens. It really is the dickens when the mind plays clever tricks, projecting colored pictures of a bird upon a plate. Such a cruel fate. Dinners. All I see are dinners. Just exactly what a sinner doesn't need. It's so frustrating to see roasted birds parading down the Broadway of my mind. Destiny's unkind. On the other hand, it's really kind of neat to have these visions. It provides a little break between decisions. Don't forget a dog needs rest, a break from all the stress of working day and night to earn his pay. Sleeping. Sally Mae is sleeping. And while she sleeps, I'm creeping like a panther through a park, at ease in total darkness, like a phantom in the night, but still aware it isn't right. Lurking, images are lurking. I hear the sounds of slurping in the river of my mouth. My life is going south, for if I should get caught, I'd have to eat these chicken thoughts. Chickens.
Every cowboy's dream to own his own place. Most cowboys never have a chance to do that. I had this dog that was doing quite well and selling a lot of books, and I was able to make a down payment on this place in 1990. It's been a wonderful place to be an author. It has a lot of solitude. Our nearest neighbor is 7 miles, and the next nearest neighbor is 11. My approach to writing requires a lot of solitude. I think people who are able to live with animals have access to certain knowledge that we are losing as we become more sophisticated. We're the first generation who has ever lived completely without animals. I think it has done me a lot of good to live in the slow rhythm of animals and land. That, I think, adds an element of honesty to my stories that readers recognize and appreciate. They wouldn't like me near as well if I didn't have feed to give them. I impose discipline on them. I make them work. I make them dignify themselves. And that is the same sort of thing that the Ten Commandments does for us. It imposes God's discipline on us and forces us to rise above our heathen selves. These horses, if they didn't have me to spur them and make them climb a hill and chase a cow and do the things that they are gifted to do, they wouldn't do anything. They'd sit out here and eat. That's the highest dream of every horse, is to do nothing but eat. And it's probably the highest aspiration of a lot of humans too. We need the discipline of a higher source of knowledge and wisdom to force ourselves to become more than just lazy slugs. I find a lot of parallels between humans and horses, and also humans and dogs.
I believe that John's work is making people better and more mindful of God's creation and the beauties of nature, and of which dogs and people are a big part of. And they wonder, you know, how can you live out here 40 miles from town and then drive to town anytime you want groceries or to pick up your mail or to go to church or to shop? Well, the conveniences, the benefits outweigh those inconveniences, because here we are out here, a very special and unique place, living close to nature. We see the seasons change. For John to have a place where he is inspired to write the books, I think that's important. So I'm willing to do that.
I think it's very important in books and films that the people who are doing them are honest with their audience. They're not trying to pretend to be something they're not. Form is one of the things that distinguishes art from chaos. I don't think that I could explain my approach to art or literature to someone who didn't accept the truth of the first verse in the Bible, which is, in the beginning God created heaven and earth. In a way, the artist is imitating creative act in making everything from atoms to galaxies. When we try to write a story, there is a healing power in stories. The Bible is loaded with stories. Jesus was skilled at using stories. He was not a theologian. He was not a university professor. Christians sometimes confuse the role of storyteller and preacher. Oddly enough, we're being attacked by the secular world because they don't take us seriously, and we're also being attacked by our Christian brothers who think that we're not Christian enough. We ought to be preaching instead of telling stories or singing songs. The Christian artist should be a good artist, and you don't have to draw pictures of Jesus. Your worldview will come through in the stories that you tell. If you are honest, if you have developed high craftsmanship, then what you believe most deeply will come through in your stories, and your stories will follow birth, death, and resurrection. We don't need any more Christian movies that are bad movies. We don't need any more Christian art that's bad art. We need Christian art that is subtle and funny and beautiful. I see it out here almost every minute of every day. I can see it in this ragweed, which I don't particularly admire. Beauty is one of God's gifts to us, and so I think is humor. Only the maker of galaxies would have thought to give mankind such a marvelous gift as a dog.
Probably my favorite part about the Hank the Cowdog books is his songs that he puts into every book. They're just really funny songs. They're very creative.
I learn all about him. Like, I like to know about everything he does in his audiobooks. And he's just really funny at it and really good at it. And he makes me laugh all the time.
My favorite thing is basically the stories. I mean, they're so amazing, and the way he puts the stories together, and it's just so amazing, all the adventures and everything.
I grew up in the country, and so the books seem to relate well to our life and our dogs, and all the details about Hank the Cowdog and Hank and his ranch security just seemed to fit our family at the time. And now I have 3 young boys, and I think they'll enjoy the humor of the books.
He's funny, and I like his stories.
in general, when Drover says something, he's so quick to say, that's not right, no, don't say that, no, let me teach you how to do it, this is the way to do it.
I like most about Hank the Cowdog is the comedy, the fun inside of the story. You get really pulled into it. It's like going on your own adventure.
Favorite moment would probably be when Drover complains.
I really like that he is always getting in trouble. My favorite Hank the Cowdog song, the one where he sang about porcupines and the hissing vampire.
They were just real fun growing up, getting to read the stories and see something that was down on the farm.
Hi, Hanky. Did you find any monsters in the night?
I can never forget my responsibility to them. These parents and grandparents are trusting me with the souls of their children. I'm afraid that a lot of people in the entertainment business are more interested in selling kids something than in protecting their spirits and giving them artistic material that will make them stronger and healthier. It's me again.
I am just amazed at the creativity that comes from him and the different songs that he has come up with. I enjoy most of them, except some of the Cowdog songs, maybe. I mean, the coyote and when they talk about trash and stuff. I don't enjoy those, but the kids love them. They love those songs and they ask for them. So many of them are extremely creative. How would anybody come up with this, but John? So I see him as an extremely talented person who is creating things that other people will enjoy. He gives us the honor and the privilege of laughing at ourselves. We see ourselves in the dogs.
Laughter is a gift from God that we should be using probably more than we do, and it's a gift that Christians haven't always taken good advantage of. My stories have this element. It's not what I set out to do. It's much better than what I set out to do. This is kind of a blessing that's fallen to me, and I am lucky enough to be able to pass it on to other people.
Animals in the air, am I still there? Did I make it home? Whoa. Catch up to me. 1917. Bloody April, I can't sleep. My heart's behind on catching beats, still above the brink. Too shy to shut my eyes, still in the way of harm. Letting steel collision scars above the clouds. We made a mark, painting red against the sheets of stars. Oh, trigger finger, shaky handle, nose down. Oh, pull this dove up, steady now, search your horrid sign. Oh, come on, boy, just pull it more. Animals in the air, am I still there? Did I make it home? Whoa. still there? Did I make it home? Whoa. Catch up to me.